I'm not sure how I'm going to follow that, really, so I'll just go through this. So I'm absolutely delighted to have been invited to speak here on BWD Winter, and the benefits of comms people, probably counterintuitive, sometimes letting go and trusting non-comms people, especially such as frontline staff. I know it's going to be very tough to follow the previous speakers, who I thought were all excellent. Shows there's so many powerful examples in both the NHS and councils, which shows the benefits to patients and residents of public services utilising social media. So I just want to start with a very quick summary of who I am. I work for Blackburn with Darwen Council. I'm guessing, I could be wrong, that I'm the only local authority person in the room, apart from one. Hello, we'll talk later. Swap notes about councils. And I've worked in communications, although most of my job now is working with partners in the NHS. I've been at Blackburn for just over 10 years, and during that time I've seen us become more and more mature at using social media. I'll have to be honest, when we started out, we were quite naive about using social media. So we just set up pages because people wanted us to set pages up. So I remember one of the Facebook pages we did was Building Schools for the Future. I don't know if anyone remembers that programme. Well, we set one up, a Facebook page for BSF, for the kids to put in. We got 3 likes in a year. So that experiment was quickly abandoned. I'm also going to start with a bit of a confession. While I'm here presenting to you about this, and while I'm quite passionate about BWD Winter, I can't certainly take much credit for this. In fact, it was the brainchild of one of our previous speakers, Mark, who used to work for the council, and another colleague of mine, Lucy Hyam, who now works for the NHS. But most of the credit for making BWD Winter as successful as it has been is to the officers who run it day in, day out. And I think the key to what we tried to achieve here is having the confidence and trust to devolve power to the front line. Just a little bit of background. One of the key criticisms all upper tier authorities get during icy and snowy weather is that the gritters are not out. I guess there's people in this room who've done the same. Council, they're not gritting the things. You can't get anywhere. I think, as a country, if we get a little bit of snow, everything goes crazy. So we get all the flack. I've done it myself actually when I was a journalist and social media was in its infancy. I used to give the query about, where's all the gritters? George has complained. We would try to update residents through the Twitter corporate account, but what we found, most of the people getting angry with us weren't using Twitter. A lot of the negative comments and hence negative perceptions was through Facebook. Blackburn with Darwen Council doesn't have a Facebook page. We have separate pages, so we had no direct channel to counter some of the criticism we were getting about what we were doing. We would get a lot of calls from people complaining that routes were being gritted, and the classic one, as my local authority colleague would know, why are we paying so much council tax when you can't even grit the roads? Same with bins as well. We always get, you don't collect my bins. So apparently that's all councils do, grit roads and do bins. Also led to media queries each year. Are you prepared for winter? It was a problem which was damaging trust in the council. And I'm a firm believer one of the fundamental aims of communications is ultimately about building trust in your organisation and their brands. So what did we do? We looked at various options, but we concluded the best way would be to set up a Facebook page dedicated to our winter services, which run between October and March. I'm not sure if you remember, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we were getting very deep snow in March. I think there was one picture we saw on BWD Winter of, I thought it was from Canada actually, because it was that deep. The Facebook page was primarily to get weather updates out, tell people where we would be gritting, and just general safety messages. It was run by the communications team, but we soon realised this was not an adequate solution. It would only work if we put out real-time information, and certainly as comms professionals we couldn't do that. I don't think there's many comms professionals in this room, unless it was an emergency, would be Facebooking out at 1 AM. I certainly wouldn't do that. So when I first joined the council, the default position was communications had to be controlled centrally, otherwise it will be a reputational risk. So what we went on to do is we thought, well, wouldn't it be better if we actually got officers to run it? Now, again, that was a risk. There's some senior managers and us ourselves. We were a bit, should we let go? You know, is it appropriate? But we thought if we could train them, we'd be able to get some good outcomes. I mean, having a communications team actually running it, as I said, defeats the object. And one of the things the officers said to us, they were quite worried about criticism, whether you should delete posts, and you know, how do you directly engage. But I think we as I was saying, were confident we could train them up to put out good quality content appropriate for the audience and avoid any of the common pitfalls. As you know, there's always news stories about some of the cleverest people putting something inappropriate out on tweets and causing immediate storm. And I think it is testament to the officers who actually run the page that they always come across as warm, friendly and understanding rather than the stereotypical bureaucrats. For example, a typical post on BWD Winter would be, don't know if I can say that right. Did that come out quite okay? It's cold tonight. Please stay safe. Here are the gritting tonight. Probably emoji as well. I mean, I'm not a big fan of emojis, but you know, I think I'm in the past really on that. So what we became an enabler and not a doer, and I'm glad to say it's been very, very successful. So we'll go on to some outcomes. I'll get to some hard figures in a minute because I guess that's probably what you want. The first outcome was senior managers could actually see the benefit of the approach. But what was really interesting for me and for a comms person is that people who had no real connection to the council other than perhaps paying council tax were actually going on defending what the council were doing when people were being negative and complaining about the lack of gritting. So someone would put, no critters have gone out tonight, and someone would come out and say, actually, I've just seen a gritter coming round. I mean, we all know there's a narrative around councils driven nationally that we're all jobs worse, we all waste taxpayers' money and never actually deliver any services. So to see people actually defending the council was great, as I think when we do it, there's always suspicion, in the words of Christine Keeler from the Profumo scandal. Well, you would say that, wouldn't you? It also built credibility in the council that people who were non-council were actually defending it. But another really interesting aspect, and something that I really took an interest in, and especially for a council with a responsibility for adult social care, BWD Winter became enabled community responses to winter issues. As part of our drive to get more communities more resilient at winter, the council developed something called Grit Squads, groups of residents who would help grit the streets and check on their neighbours. It was part of our behaviour change campaign called Your Call. And BWD Winter was a great way for for Grit Squads to keep in touch with each other and also help them target their efforts where it'd be most beneficial. To give you an example, this is a made-up one, but I could have picked anyway. Someone on Facebook might say, it's particularly bad on this street, and Mrs. Miggins might need some help. A member of the Grit Squad would see that and say, right, I'm on it. Now, I'll go out on a limb here and say that intervention may have prevented Mrs. Miggins becoming ill and potentially stopped her going to hospital. And I'm fairly convinced BWD has had a positive effect on the borough's health. I think that's a page of that's the page's major strength. Big issue for council is loneliness and isolation, and this, just through Facebook, even though in a way it's quite a small thing, was bringing communities together. So I'll just go on to some figures. Currently, it's got 10,000 likes. By far, in fact, I think it has more likes than every single Facebook page we've got it's more than that. And since it started, I'm told we've seen a reduction in about 10,000 calls to the council during the winter months. And just to give you a real-life example of how effective it can be, does everyone remember the 2015 floods? It wiped out entire town centres. It did in Rochdale anyway. It was like a tidal wave. Blackburn with Darwen, I'm pleased to say, didn't get hit as badly as other areas, but still bad enough. And we used BWD Winter to get messages out. Between Boxing Day and New Year, it happened on Boxing Day, our reach was 130,000 and we had 25 engagements, 25,000 engagements, which I think is pretty good for a week of a local authority page. I'm quite modest, but I'll say it anyway. I'm pleased to say the page has been highlighted as good practice by the government, and no less has won awards. So just concluding, I'm going to be slightly disloyal now to my employer, so hopefully you can edit this out later. Oh, it's live streaming, isn't it? So yeah, just bleep this bit out, turn the cameras off. The page has recently turned into something called BWD Roads and is monitored throughout the year and updates on road closures, etc. It's not good practice, as we know, to change a well-known and well-used page to something else. People sign up for it for a reason, and they sign up for it for that. But having said that, though, it's still very, very successful. And when we were hit by floods again, Blackburn with Darwen is not just stories about flooding. We do other things there. It provided a good vehicle to get information out about road closures and flood messages. One post about a road closure due to the floods was shared 154 times and attracted 160 comments and 96 likes and other emotions, mainly angry ones because of the rain. They've also the officers have also used videos themselves, so we don't go down and take videos, they do it on their iPad. And they've done a video about future roadworks and the reasons behind them, and that was watched 13,000 times. That level of reach you can't get in the local paper, especially with local papers as they are going on. In fact, actually, during the floods, we do comms for Rosendale Council as part of a shared service, and I was actually getting earache from people in Rosendale about why we're not doing something similar here. So they're saying, why is Blackburn better than us? So we're looking at ways of devolving power there. I'm not going to stand here and say Blackburn with Darwen is an exemplar of how to use social media. We've still got a long way to go in becoming more digitally minded and building on the successes of BWD Winters. I mean, we've already got our children's centres have now got Facebook pages, and our leisure centres are using it as well. And without sounding like an X Factor contestant, we're still on a journey to make best use. But I'm fairly convinced BWD Winter success shows that communicators don't need to control every channel, and indeed in certain cases it's actually not letting go can be actually more detrimental. I'll just leave you with a couple of quotes. This is from the officers who run the page. We're delighted with the page and really enjoy interacting directly with the public. It certainly meant our service is perceived better by the public. And this is one from the public as well. We really appreciate this page. It gives out great information, which really helps. So thanks for listening, and I'll take any questions. Thank you. That's always a good one. I think it was part of a funding bid we did, which meant we had to have a communications channel for year-round about roads. It wasn't because we were getting loads of coal and potholes, it was just to access the fund. Again, I wouldn't say that's best practice, but we are where we are. But it's still phenomenally successful. It's still run by the officers, and they're still getting messages out on that. So hopefully that answers your question. that is about training, I think, stopping to get into arguments. It's about training and reassuring them that the I'm pleased to say on that page, I can't think of any time where we've had a situation where a member of staff has got into arguments about it. And I think it's about training. If you don't have the training, then you are taking a massive reputational risk by letting go. So you need training and support. We're still admins of the page. We very, very rarely intervene. In fact, I can't think of any time since it started where we've had to. But I think, yeah, it goes down into the training you do initially. Have Rosendale started using Facebook now? Well, they had a council page before we came along, but the two things we've done at Rosendale, which, you know, because of the success we had BWD Winter, we convinced their senior managers to do, is we've got a bins page, or environmental services, because it covers parks, and that is being very, very well used. Because, as I say, one of the common complaints councils get, whether it's fair or not, is you're not collecting our bins, or we never see road sweepers, and the parks are a mess. I mean, of course, we've gone through quite a long time of austerity, so that has impacted on it. But we are able to use that page, the officers are able to use that page to directly respond to queries. You know, if the bin hasn't been collected, they can say, right, we're on it, or give reasons as well. And it's actually been quite successful now. In fact, it's been more successful than the Rosendale Council Facebook page normally, because I think people want that. They do want to interact directly with officers. They don't really want to interact with, you know, corporate comm stooges or anything like that. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.